So tell us how you got into the business of what you do.
Music.
Because you're fairly unique in that. I mean, I remember seeing, years ago, the APRS Guide to Recording, or one of those kind of directories of all the studios, and it was full of lots of studios, and maybe Fleetwood Mobile or something like that, or Manor Mobile or something, and then there was a picture of you. It was like a studio. It was Tony Faulkner. It was you, and I thought, well, it's like you're a bit of a pioneer there. You're the only person sort of.
Well, what a pioneer means.
Well, you're the only person in the directory of UK studios who isn't a studio.
Yeah, well, I was removed from it because I've never been a great one for worrying about being politically correct, and I upset somebody on the council there, and they decided that I hadn't got the right certificates for was it employers' liability for staff. Right. Well, seeing as I didn't have any staff and I worked from home, that did seem a little petty. But
so you're no longer friends with the.
Oh no, I'm very friendly with them, but. I mean, I'm sure you've been wandering around the business a long time, and there's a huge amount of politics as well as technology and music and psychology. That's the interesting thing about the business is all these different things you get involved in.
So there was a time when you weren't in the APRS directory then.
No, I haven't been in the APRS directory for years, and I'm just too busy working.
Well, exactly. That's the main thing, isn't it? I think that's the
And the world's changed. I mean, those days, talking about 20 odd years ago, there were a lot of studios and a lot of studio managers. And
so how did you get to that point of being your initial photo in the APRS directory? How did you get to that point? What got you into the business, and where did you?
I always wanted to be a recording engineer because my dad liked Sibelius, and we used to listen to Sibelius at home.
Right.
And I used to play a bit. Used to play the flute and sing in choirs and things like that. That's all good fun.
So it was a musical family.
Yeah, but I didn't really want to be I don't want to play in the orchestra full time.
Right.
Because. I mean, if you look at the schedules, there's lots of touring, there's lots of Shostakovich and Mahler. I love Shostakovich and Mahler, but I don't really want to do it 7 days a week.
It's hard work.
365 days a year.
Yeah.
In my job, I get to do Renaissance polyphony, I get to do light music, film scores, orchestras, a bit of travelling. It's perfect, really.
So how
don't kill too many people.
How did you get yourself into that situation? What did you do? All your
just musical connections.
Right.
I was at school. And I applied to join the BBC as a film recordist. I saw the advert in the back of Studio Sound magazine.
Right.
So I applied for this job, went and had an interview, and they said, well, you've got the job, but seeing as you're good at languages and you're interested in music, I recommend you on a personal basis. What the guy interviewing said to me after the interview, he said, why don't you go off and get a degree, and then there's much more upward mobility within the corporation.
Right.
So I ran off and tried to find somewhere to get a degree to do with music recording, when all I got was maths, additional maths, physics, French and German, and a failed Latin. I mean, I still remembered my Latin, but I failed history and that. And it was very hard to find a course. So you'd probably find one now more easily because things are more flexible. But that number of years ago, you were stuffed if you didn't have the right A-levels.
What year would this have been, if you don't mind me asking?
68, I went to university.
Right.
And I went to Surrey.
Yeah.
And I applied. I applied to go on the Tonmeister course, and I was rejected because I was fundamentally unsuited to the music industry.
Yeah.
I
had a similar experience. I applied and they wouldn't interview me. I had the wrong A-levels, so they wouldn't interview me.
Yeah, no, just the same. Well, I got the interview, and I did the auditions, and I could play what they put in front of me on the piano, and I could transpose something, and I could sing something, but they decided because I hadn't got the right A-levels that I couldn't do it. Yeah. So I persevered with a physics degree and just made all my connections with the music business, which is that's what I do it for. I'm not really that interested in sampling rates and carbon fibre cable, only as a means to an end.
Yeah.
I can't say I'm an anorak on the gear except when it's useful.
Yeah.
And of course it is. I think it's a good idea to have some kind of theoretical background. You can't just learn it all off, reading blogs on the websites.
I suppose the experience of in physics, especially, it's experimentation and finding empirical results is kind of part of that process, isn't it? So it must have stood you in very good stead.
Nice big mixture of all these different things. Our industry tends to be a bit compartmentalised. You've got the theorists who so you've got to do everything with one ribbon microphone, and then you've got the empiricists who say, well, if it makes a noise, I'm going to stick a microphone in front of it, and then it'll sound horrible, and I'll cover it in lexicon. There is space for something in between, and if you come at that from a musical approach,
Yeah.
there's work. And I mean, you can't please everybody. Different people want different things. And
No. So tell me about your first professional engagements. How did these come about? And in terms of recording?
connections. When I was at university, I used to record concerts, recitals.
Yeah.
Either university orchestras and things like that.
So did you own a tape recorder? And
yes, I bought a Revox G36 from Studio Sound Classifieds for 45 quid, and spent about £150 having new heads and a capstan put on it. It was very, very heavy.
Yeah.
I used to drag it up from my digs in Guildford right up to the university or to the cathedral to record.
Right.
And I had a couple of Calrec mics, which were super mics. And I've never been a snob about mics. I'm choosy, but Calrec wasn't a big name, but they sounded nice and they looked good and they were incredibly reliable and they were very nice people. So, why the heck not? So I got those, and I started out recording recitals. We would have, a tenor would come along with a pianist and they would do a recital in the university lecture theatre, and they would say, can somebody record it? We want cassettes.
Right.
So there was nobody around at that time on the Tonmeister course who did it, so I did. And I made all sorts of connections, and my first real professional engagement was doing a tenor called James Griffith, very nice guy, and we did two LPs. I still think in terms of CDs, I'm the wrong way round. We did the Curlew of Warlock, which is a chamber piece, and we did the best of Gilbert and Sullivan, Were You Not Cocoa Plighted, all that sort of stuff. And it was good fun. And in those days, I really did do everything with either 2 or 4 mics, because that's all I had anyway. And it seemed to work, and musicians seemed to like it. It was quick. And of course, the overheads are much lower. If you want to run out with 60 microphones, you need crew, you need 60 microphones, you need all the stuff.
Yeah.
And I found that you didn't really need it, not for the sort of work I was doing. I mean, people can do what they like, but it doesn't work for me. I get confused if I've got that many microphones out.
So were you doing edits when you
used to cut with the razor blade.
Yeah, so you take the tape home
and snip it.
Go through the takes, snip them together, post them to the...
Yeah, you send them a cassette and they come back and say, I want another 400 edits, please. And you say, well, I can't do that many, because it won't make it any better. It'll just be a rag bag. And I made some good connections even then, because I started off using, like everybody did, there's a horrible sort of Emmy tape extruded metal block for editing, which was, the price was right and it worked, but you couldn't do anything terribly clever. And if you wanted to undo edits and repick them, often you found yourself you were either cutting your fingers or the tape would get damaged, and it was horrible. So I found some edit blocks made by a guy called Joel Toole in the States, Editall blocks. Yeah. And he was a very clever guy from CBS News, radio and TV news, and he developed a very clever editing system. And I wrote to him and I said, can you make me a stereo editing block? And he called me on the telephone 3 days later and said, I'm getting on a plane. He said, I've been waiting for this call for 15 years. Nobody's ever called me and said, if you look at an ordinary razor blade edit, one channel comes in before the other, which means one channel is clipped off and the other one plops. So I wanted him to make me butterfly
like a V shape or something. Right.
And he did me butterfly editing blocks, and that was very interesting. So his first example of being just bloody awkward, but in a good cause.
That must be quite tricky then, because obviously if you're cutting,
you get used to it.
Yeah.
Well, because particularly for headphone listeners, the 45-degree cut is often pretty audible unless you're very expert, which of course it takes a few years to be that expert.
Yeah.
While you're not an expert, you make piano edits.
Well, it's not like in pop music where there's a bass drum going smack, where you can, if it goes click, that's kind of part of the bass drum sound. In classical music, it's a bit more tricky, isn't it? Yeah. Well,
it's very obvious. So I've just been doing it for years. The phone rang, and if you do a couple of projects which are successful, that really helps. And early on, when I was working for Angus, who was a contributor to Studio Sound, I worked with him for years when I left university. I did a project with Philip Jones Brass for a Swiss label called Clavis Verlag. And what happened was Gary Howarth, the trumpet player in the group, who's now a big-time conductor, very good guy, he'd written arrangements of Swiss marches for a friend of the wife of Philip Jones. And they went to Decca with it and said, we'd love to do an LP of Swiss marches arranged for brass ensemble. And they said, thank you, but no thanks. And he said, well, is it okay if I take it somewhere else? And they said, oh yeah, do that, whatever you like. So we did it in St Giles Cripplegate, surround sound, 1974.
Wow.
And it got a Grand Prix de Disque and an Edison Award or something or other within weeks of coming out. It's a really nice record.
So was that quadraphonic?
Yes. Just 2 in front, 2 behind.
Yeah.
But it sounded nice. Still sounds nice. I've got the half-inch masters.
So it was on.
Rotting in my
So it was
room.
on half-inch
tape.
4-track.
Yep.
And you then sent that off to be encoded in.
No, it wasn't encoded at all.
I see.
I was bloody awkward then because it was just the 2 channels. I just front 2 channels.
I see.
Because I'd been caught out. I did 2 jobs for Harmonia Mundi Germany, which came out on a Bazef label, and we'd done it was 4 channels surround in a very resonant church.
Yeah.
And the back channels I just brought up so that they modded to full level, but you wouldn't have played them back at that level.
No.
Otherwise it sounds like, the Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
And when it went off to Bazef for cutting, they encoded it SQ with the back channels at full level.
Right.
So it sounded like it was halfway up an Alp. And after that, and very phasey Alp too.
Yeah.
After that, I never agreed to it. We always delivered a 2-channel master and a 4-channel.
So how did you get on with 5.1 then?
I hate the one in the middle. I mean, I don't hate it for movies. If you want dialogue and you're trying to anchor it in a theatre that's huge, I can see the need for the centre speaker. But for music, it's just horrible. And most people's, I don't know how many homes you've been in, if somebody buys themselves a nice big Panasonic plasma and they buy the Panasonic kit of speakers here and speakers there, the one in the middle,
Yeah.
and that's fine if it's Tom Cruise saying, "I'm gonna get you now." I don't want the violin of Mendelssohn Violin Concerto coming through that. And I've spent all my life doing stereo or surround. I've never been a mono man. And for me, just the sound of that mono speaker in the middle, if it's achieved audibility, I already don't like it.
Microphones, do you ever suspend them from the ceiling and hang them down? And
I got out of that habit because the problem with hanging microphones is, first of all, it takes a long time.
Yes.
Secondly, once you've got them up there, they're not where you wanted them because they move. And now we've got health and safety, which is reasonable, because if people are hanging around off the ceiling, then it's right that they don't fall down and break their necks or fall on top of people and kill them. But it does mean a place like the Barbican, where I was working a lot, you'd have to get there at 6 o'clock in the morning to string a couple of mics up, and then you'd have to take them down at lunchtime because there's a graduation ceremony and they're in the way of the projector and the lighting and they're ugly. And then you have to put them back up again, and if you've got to get them back up again for 5:45 and the graduation ceremony goes on till 5:15, that's quite a big deal.
Yeah.
So I developed a funny technique for working in the Barbican, which is a 27 kilo metal base, a little bit like a sort of temporary bus stop,
Right.
with a tube in it, built by Tim for me, Tim de Paravicini. It's very esoteric. And that has
That's what the E stands for.
a 5 metre carbon fibre vertical boom on it.
Right.
I've forgotten the name of the brand, it's a German one, it's very, very good. And a carbon fibre boom on the top, which goes back over the audience up to 1.5 metres. And with a bit of thinking about it, a bit of parallel or peculiar thinking, you can put that stand in front of the leader, in front of the cello, behind the conductor if there's space, and then you can twist everything round until your stereo pair is where you want it to be in the middle. And that means for a typical concert, I can set up it right from parking the van outside to having the sound coming through a pair of headphones in about 20 minutes. Well, I can't string in that time.
Amazing.
And people want to save money, so it's a smaller crew if you use mic stands rather than employing lots of people. And
do you have an assistant that you take with you?
Nobody full time. I have in the past, but not now. The work's too unreliable. I would be very nervous about being able to pay their mortgage every month, or their rent.
But you have people you can call on.
Oh yeah, I've got some very good regulars. I work a lot with a guy called Peter Newble up in Colchester. He's really good, very reliable, very nice chap. And if I fell down and broke my ankle, he would be able to do it. Or
so what does he do when he's not working for you then? Is he?
Oh, he's got his own clients.
Yeah.
He's very, very good.
I see.
And we tend to work a bit like that. Most freelancers are pretty good at staying out of each other's hair.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always a couple that will try and poach work or whatever, but generally speaking, we all get along. And
Do you ever apply compression during the mastering, or even during the mixing, or even during the recording stage of anything you do?
Not normally.
No.
You might do some manual compression because if the slow
fader riding.
Yeah. The other problem, you got some pieces. I remember when we did Damnation of Faust, there was one crash when Faust goes off to hell, which was 13 dB louder than anything else.
Yes.
In the previous 2 hours. Well, I can't really put out a CD that sort of peaks -20, apart from one. That's no good. So you do things about that. Shostakovich.
Did you know it was coming when you were recording?
Well, I recorded the rehearsal, so I found out then. And one advantage of running 88K24, there is a bit of headroom there compared with what's going to be issued.
Yeah.
The only other compression I normally use is something that Adam's Keeping put me onto, another guy who's been around a few years, and he said everybody thinks of a compressor limiter. They think it's got to be sort of 3-to-1 or 4-to-1.
Yes.
A slammer. You can actually set the threshold, say, to -20 something, and make it 1.3-to-1, and then that brings up the perceived volume of the quiet stuff and saves Granny's speakers from jumping off the mantelpiece. And I use that sometimes. And
what do you use to do that? What's the
within Sadie plugin?
Yeah.
Which means you can save it and change your mind.
Yeah.
It has another advantage that if you do a piano concerto straight to twin track, and it's all gone to bed, and then suddenly the pianist says, "Oh my God, there's not enough of me." It's amazing how a small amount of compression like that pulls the solos forward.
Right.
Subjectively, I know it's subjective, but that's how we listen to music. It's subjective.
So going back to your big crash in Faust, did you therefore set your level 13 dBs lower than you otherwise would do?
No, it was already there. I think I was already.
You allow. So what generally?
Yeah, I'm used to surprises.
Do you use XY cross pairs, or do you space?
No, I phased arrays.
Yeah, so they're sort of a couple of foot apart.
66.5 centimetres.
Right.
To be precise. That will be a starting point.
And how did you come to that? Is that purely empirical discovery?
Yeah.
Right.
And it was very funny. I was playing back some stuff in Henry Wood Hall control room, getting ready for another job, and there was another recording crew in the other control, and it was Philips Classics, and in walks Arno Schulze. I'd never met him before, and he says, "Hello, my name's Arno Schulze of Philips Classics. That sounds like you've done it with 67 centimetre omnis." And of course I had. It was the thing I'd done in Walthamstow, and it's a technique he used, and not everybody does. Different people do different things. The whole. But I use this wide stereo bar, which I'm very happy with. It's 67 odd centimetres omnis on the outside, and 10 centimetres in from each one. I put an MK21, subcardioid.
Yeah.
And it means that when you're doing a concert and you're sitting in your control room and you can't possibly go and move your microphones, I've got a choice between either fat and boomy or thin and scratchy, or a bit of each. And it's amazing how they reach, because it's a phased array. You've got 3 dB of forward gain, like an aerial, and it reaches right into the band. We did a job last week with the new Queen's Hall Orchestra in St James's Palace, up in one of those very nice rooms upstairs, and there were quite a few people in the audience who came up to me at the end and saying, "Were you recording the concert?" Because there was just this one stand next to the conductor, straight vertical up, and then bam, ankle back over and over his head and back a bit with these 4 mics on.
Yeah.
You couldn't see anything. You just didn't really notice it, because the normal perception for recording is there's got to be a microphone each and wires and stands everywhere.
When you're doing a concert recording, do you have audience mics for the applause at the end? No.
You've got too much of that already.
Right.
Normally.
I suppose if they're omnis, you're going to get plenty of that when they make a noise anyway.
You tend to get
Enough.
Particularly with chamber music, you've got more than enough.
Yeah.
I mean, that's in a way, it's a dynamic range problem, because you can often find the applause is about 8 dB louder than you want it to be, because it means you have to turn the string quartet down so that you've got enough headroom to cover the audience. And we've got other issues with audience. I did a job for one of the labels last year where they decided that the pianist, the audience didn't sound enthusiastic enough, so I had to put the applause in from somebody else's concert. And then it didn't stop there. The pianist decided he didn't really like the acoustic. Could I dry it out and put artificial reverb on it? So did that. And then they said, well, he'd like to do some editing as well. So after all of that, this is a CD that lasts 17 minutes. 1 minute 37 seconds was live, and even the applause was from somebody else's concert. It's staggering, isn't it?
That's like that. What was that? The fake lot of Kenner recordings.
Oh yeah, Joyce Hatto.
That's it. Yeah,
That's very funny.
great.
I mean, that's just
superb. Did they nick, were any of yours been nicked? For
yes. Oh yes, I did several of her recordings without knowing about it.
Superb story. There was a TV program about it.
Well, the best part of the story was that the critics do enjoy the power they have. That's part of the thing about being a critic. It's fun. But for these critics to say that Joyce Hatto's performance of a particular piece was so much better than somebody else's, it actually turns out to be the same.
One. Yeah.
I do love
Superb,
that. Yeah. And it only got found out by accident because one of the critics tried to rip one of these CDs, and he bunged it into his PC, and it did the usual whir up, and it said, "Do you want to get the metadata for this?" And in comes a different pianist name from a particular label, from the ISR code, presumably, or somewhere or other.
Yeah. Anyway, that's for another video. That's a whole other story.
Well, it's very funny.
Just mastering. Do you apply any mastering limiting, or do you send it off to somebody who then limits it?
With classical stuff, we don't do any of that sort of thing.
No.
And nobody's got the budget either, even if they wanted.
But things get mastered. Does anybody do any processing post you, or?
Not normally. No, we make DDPs and send them off to the client and go to the factory.
So you do that from within Sadie.
Yep.
And that's kind of done and dusted.
You print it out. Well, it's sort of part of the editing process because you do the sessions and then you do the first edit for the artists to hear. They don't want to hear something which is sort of very rough shot. They want something that's going to be like the finished job, with maybe a few little blemishes in there that they would like you to have another look at.
Yeah.
So you have to do the mastering at a fairly early stage, otherwise they're just going to whinge about it being too dry or too loud or too soft or too bright or too.
So presumably the last thing you do is normalise everything.
No, I didn't normalise anything.
Do you worry at all about hearing loss as you get older?
Pardon?
Exactly.
Well, I'm aware of it. Not in terms of top loss. I'm aware of a rising noise floor. Sorry, it's a real engineer talk here, isn't it? I'm aware of a rising noise floor, which is, when I'm tired, is more of an issue. But that's true for anybody. I've never really blown my brains out very much.
No, I suppose not. In your...
Well, some engineers do, and it's very exciting to turn it up loud, but your ears never recover completely from that sort of thing, and they only recover a bit and slowly. So I've tried to look after my ears, and I've always been able to hear around corners, as my mother used to say. My kids are the same. You can have a conversation down here and they'll say, "You're talking about me," and they're upstairs. So much to do with hearing is to do with what your brain does in the processing. I worry about it, but it's sort of tough, isn't it, really? I've not gone deaf yet. Do you worry about it?
I suppose I do from time to time, but similar as you, there's not much you can do about it. It's a technical fact that by the time you're 64 or something, that you will have gone down to only hearing up to about 8K.
Well, that's on steady state tones. The ear isn't.
No, well, this
isn't as simple as that. It really
it's like with your, Rupert Neve's theory that obviously all the frequencies way above 20k make a difference, which is obviously going to be true because they must interact with the ones below. It's like the aliasing and things like that.
It's
things
a
that
space.
interfere and harmonics that interact with each other.
No, I do worry about it, and I got a horrible roast up on one of the blogs last month. I dared to take somebody on a blog. There was a blog saying, "Are Rode microphones as good as Sherps or something or other?" Well, I've got both, and I don't feel I have a particular axe to grind. And my track record is that if I could do it with a cowrick that cost me 45 quid and it sounded nice, well, what am I supposed to do? Cry? It's great.
Yeah.
And this article came up, and I wrote in and said, well, I've got both, and I've used both, and I can't say they're the same, but I can't possibly say that the Rodes are crap, which is what they were trying to say in this blog. Because they aren't. They're really good. And they're different. The Omnis are more Omni than the Sherps 2Hs, which in some circumstances is nice. But in other circumstances it isn't. They're just different microphones.
Yeah.
And for woodwind, for example, the cardioids are very, very useful, and they're quite airy as well. They're bright and they're clean. They're voiced slightly differently from the Sherps, but I couldn't say that one's awful and the other one's wonderful. No. So I took this guy on, and the response I got was that I was just so old I couldn't tell anyway. And I thought it was Well, pretty stupid anyway. But there we are.
Well, on that depressing note, thank you very much, Tony. It's been a great pleasure. It's been fantastic. I'm going to be typing for days. I'll probably be emailing you to find out how to spell all these people I've never heard of, and
we can always come back.
All these mic numbers that I don't know about. So I'll probably be in touch before it goes to press.
Well, you were asking about pure cross pairs. The only pure cross, I've got a stereo mic I use a lot. I've got a Royer SF24 stereo ribbon, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Have you seen those?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I'm very happy with that. I've got lots of ribbons. I have a passion for ribbon microphones. Because they've got lots of presence when they spit at you.
They're velvety smooth.
Yeah, but they've got balls as well.
Yeah.
If you ever get to do orchestral light music sessions.
And you get enough gain out of them?
Yeah.
I suppose if it's a Royer you would, but what about, do you use any like sort of 4038s and things like that?
I've got 3 4038s I use for light music percussion. I don't bother with giving everybody a microphone in the percussion section because you end up with sort of 47 channels and you can't find the one you want. I just stick 3 4038s up at about 5 foot across, and you can hear everybody. It's never completely in your face, but it's always there. And they sound nice, they're clean, and they don't clip. And people always look at them and laugh. The 44s even more so, you know, I've got some of the AA ones.
Right.
And when I used to work with Mike, the timpanist at the RPO, he used to wear a bow tie on the second hand, tighten it up to put in front of the microphone because it looked right. And musicians are affected by microphones. I can remember a guy called Jose Luis Garcia who used to lead the English Chamber Orchestra. He liked working with me because I had big microphones. And if he saw an M49 or an M50 around the front of the orchestra, he knew that he was going to sound like a king. And I think he actually played better. Because it felt it was worth it. It's a bit like in your business. If you just turn up with a little compact, people have a different response to turning up with a real camera when it's obvious you know what you're doing.
That's not his business, it's only his hobby, really.
Thanks, mate.
You will do a better...
It's becoming his business, though.
I think you get better out of artists if the stuff looks right.